Okay, so picture this. You win the world's most prestigious Peace Prize, but you can't even step outside to celebrate. Why? Because you're in hiding from your own government. Well, that is the incredible true story of the 2025 Nobel laureate. Oh my God, I have no words. Those were the first words from María Corina Machado. Not in a press conference, but whispered down a secret phone line just minutes before the whole world found out. You can just feel the shock, right? A moment of pure disbelief for a woman living in constant fear for her life. And that really is the heart of this whole thing, isn't it? The world's biggest prize for peace was just awarded to someone who couldn't step into the daylight to accept it, all because she was afraid of being arrested or worse by her own government. All right, so let's get into it. Who exactly is María Corina Machado? And what makes her story so incredibly significant right now? Well, the Nobel Committee didn't leave any room for doubt. They were crystal clear about why they chose her. They pointed to María Corina Machado, a 58-year-old activist, for her relentless, decades-long fight for one thing, a peaceful, democratic future for Venezuela. So while the whole world is celebrating her, where is she? Hiding. Somewhere in an undisclosed location. She had to go into hiding after the 2024 elections, and even wrote in a secret letter, "I could be captured as I write these words." I mean, talk about a contrast. Global honor on one hand and mortal danger on the other. So the big question is how? How did this one woman become this incredibly powerful symbol of unity for an entire country? You know, for the longest time, the political opposition in Venezuela was, well, it was a mess. They were famous for fighting among themselves. But Machado, she changed all of that. It was just sheer will and a message that never, ever wavered. And somehow she pulled them all together. You hear these stories from journalists on the ground about people literally crying in the streets when her car drives by. She became this mother figure, Venezuela's Iron Lady, who could bring out these huge crowds from all corners of society. And here's the key thing about her movement. It was never about violence. It was all built on this one simple, powerful idea, the power of the vote. And to really get why that's such a big deal, you have to understand the crisis that has been tearing Venezuela apart. 8 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many people have had to flee Venezuela. It's an absolute humanitarian disaster. And it's all driven by a government that the Nobel Committee says uses its violent machinery against its very own people. And that brings us right back to her core philosophy, which she puts so simply. It was a choice of ballots over bullets. For more than 2 decades, that's been her message. The only way out is peaceful. It's democratic. It's about votes, not violence. And wow, was that philosophy put to the test. So in 2024, the regime banned her from even running for president. But did she back down? Nope. She immediately threw all her support behind a substitute candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez. And together, they built this incredible grassroots movement to watch the polls. The election happens, and guess what? The opposition claims a huge victory, and they have the proof. But President Maduro just refuses to accept it. And that's when the crackdown begins, forcing Machado to go underground. Okay, so this story isn't just about Venezuela. It actually got tangled up in some pretty high-stakes international politics, especially in the weeks right before the big announcement in Oslo. So for months, there was this other big story buzzing around the Nobel Prize. Donald Trump was very, very publicly campaigning to win it himself. And you can imagine, this put a ton of pressure on the Nobel Committee. Their decision was already going to be a big deal, but now it was loaded with all this extra political tension. And when the announcement came, the reactions were like night and day. On one side, you have the Nobel Committee talking about Machado's incredible courage and her fight for democracy. On the other side, the White House immediately hits back. They accuse the committee of putting politics over peace and say, hey, Trump is the real one making peace deals. A total clash. But, you know, some analysts looked at this and saw something else, something a little more clever. They called it a delicate and smart move. Think about it. By picking Machado, who the Trump administration actually supports, the committee got to honor a real hero of democracy without picking a direct fight with the White House. It was kind of a brilliant way to thread the needle. So that makes you wonder, right? Is this prize really just about María Corina Machado? Or was the Nobel Committee using her story to say something much, much bigger to all of us? And that brings us to what might be the most important piece of this whole puzzle. The committee didn't just give out an award, they issued a warning. A really stark warning about where democracy is headed worldwide. Yeah, the head of the committee was blunt. He basically said, look, we're living in a world where democracy is in retreat. Authoritarianism is gaining ground. And for them, Machado's story wasn't just about Venezuela. It was the perfect, living, breathing example of that global fight.
And they got specific, too. They pointed to all these worrying trends. You've got leaders abusing the rule of law, the free press being silenced, critics thrown in jail, and more elections that are just not free or fair. They're saying, hey, what's happening in Venezuela? That's not a one-off. It's a symptom of a much bigger problem.
But, despite that grim warning, the reaction from a lot of world leaders was actually really hopeful. The EU chief, Ursula von der Leyen, said it perfectly. The thirst for democracy always prevails. And that really captures the spirit of this award, right? That even when things look dark, that human desire for freedom just doesn't go away. So when you boil it all down, that's the real message here. This prize wasn't just for one person. The committee was shining a giant spotlight on every single person in every country who refuses to be silenced and stands up to authoritarianism. It's a prize for all the defenders of freedom. Look, there's no doubt this international recognition is huge. It's like a powerful shield for Machado herself. But here's the final question we have to ask. Can a prize, awarded in Oslo, thousands of miles away, actually change what's happening on the streets of Caracas? The entire future of Venezuela might just hang on the answer to that question.